Hey, Claire. Hey, trucker. I got somebody coming on tonight. To tell I encounter. You know, the best way I can give it to y'all, I'm gonna give it to y'all. Well, we're gonna wait till some more people get on. I'm good. Hey, Matt. What's up? Doug family in the house. Yeah, I did a good job on Vic's show, you know. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go in and invite him on mine one day. Return the favor. So I called a friend of mine, and he gonna he gonna come on and tell his encounter tonight. So I post something to let people know. So hopefully they'll join. Yeah, I know, Matt, it was supposed to be longer, but I had trouble with my phone, so I told him to bring me back on. Hey, Bobby. Yeah, I called the friend of mine who had an encounter, and he said he would come on. So I appreciate that. I sent out a post too to let to let people know. I think I sent it out like the first one I sent out was like 6:30. So I'm sure they'll get it because some people come late. Hey, Kenneth. Hey, what's up, everybody? Hey, Trayvon. Yeah, he can ready to call me in a minute. So when he call me, we're gonna talk a little bit, and then I'm gonna let him go straight into his encounters. But y'all can always ask questions though. Somebody sent me a text. Wait a minute. Okay. Never mind. I guess they'll jump on. Hey, B. Hey, Vixen. Glad to see you on, Vix. I'm gonna. The guy gonna call in and tell the encounter. So let me take care of that now. Waiting for some more people coming on. I sent out the link, so hopefully everybody get on. B Vixen on the line. Yeah, I enjoy being on Vic's show. I've been on there. I did 320, so that made the 5th time I've been on there. So that's a lot of times. But I didn't go for the 2 hours I was supposed to. So I told him just have me back on and I'll finish it up. It's just my phone gave me trouble. That's what's up, Vix. It's good. We glad to have you back. Hey, Blondie. Yeah, all is well. All is well. I'm doing good. Yeah, he is. I just had to get him on here the best way I know how. So hopefully we're gonna call. Oh, you baking a tiny cake? Yeah, it's over 10,000 views though. It's over 10,000 views. Hey, Roy.
Hey, Marvin, what's going on?
All right, I'm waiting for some more people to get on here. I got them. They coming on, but I won't wait for some more get on. I'm gonna just
Okay.
ask you a couple of questions. You know what I mean? But you said you can do it.
Yeah.
Do it within like an hour.
Okay.
How's everybody doing this evening? Hey, Lamp of Light. I never heard a name like that, but that's everybody come up with a name. It is
Lamp of
Lamp
light.
of Light.
Wow. You don't hear have me on there yet, right?
Hmm.
You don't have me recording yet, right?
No.
Wow. Look who jumped on here all of a sudden.
Oh, I see.
Wow. Well,
She said I heard Roy's story on Dugman Encounters and Mysterious Huntsman channel. Great guest. Hey Marvin, did you
yeah.
want me to give you a shout? Yeah, go ahead, Dick Richards. Shout me out. Well, if you want to post some stuff now, go ahead and post it now, Roy. Before you go on. If you want to
I'm
say
understood
anything.
over here.
You good?
Yeah.
Alright. Okay, you got about an hour. Alright. Alright, okay, alright, y'all. Well, I was able to get in contact with a friend of mine who was kind enough to come on and tell his encounter. So I'm gonna just introduce him. My tonight's guest on my live It's Roy. Let me go somewhere quiet. Oh, let me leave out. Hold on. Wait a minute, y'all. I'm still on here, but I'm just going to a quiet place because there's gonna be too much noise in here, and I can't take it. So I'm gonna go to a quiet place. Where Roy? All right, y'all. I'm in a quieter place. I'm in a quieter place, y'all. I had to move because I didn't want no noise, so I came somewhere a little bit quiet. Wait a minute. You about ready, Roy?
Yeah.
Okay. Y'all ready for him to tell his encounter? And when you tell it, boy, just talk up loud. Cause I'm working them off my phones, but I did dark orders like that, so. Y'all ready for him to tell his encounter?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Alright.
Say hi, Roy. Love from Northshire. All right, I'm gonna just put you on, boy. Let me just ask you some questions, and before you do your encounter here, I'm gonna be like, where you from, stuff like that, where you having your encounter at, you know. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. My guest on my live is Roy Stubblefield. Welcome, Roy.
Hi, Marvin. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing great. Can you let the guests know where you from?
Originally, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. I've moved around to several different states since then. Just because I like to see different scenery, taste different food, be a different type of person, see what the mindset is there as opposed to being raised in Nebraska. So I've lived in about 5 or 6 other states. I don't have any complaints about any of them.
Okay. Before you had your sightings, did you ever believe in Dugman, Bigfoot, or any of these cryptids?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That was so far off my radar. You know, Bigfoot, I had seen the Patterson Gimlin film as a child, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what the heck that is, but I don't want to see it, or it must just be one of them. But Dogmen and Goatmen and Mothman, no, I had no knowledge of any of those things at all.
Okay, before you get in your account, I just want to ask you a couple of questions. If you could I'm gonna just say, if you can define what you think a Dugman is, what do you think it is to you, in your best words?
Well, based upon my encounter and the way it happened, this may sound crazy to you, but hopefully I can explain it enough where it won't sound so ludicrous. Is that just like you got different types of people, you have different types of these creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of them, I don't believe, are children of Nephilim.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them could be servants of the devil. Species that were starting to evolve and for some reason became frozen at a certain stage in their evolutionary process. And last but not least, until somebody can prove to me 100% that a person cannot do this, I think some of them are people that can shapeshift from a human being into one of these things.
I had a lot of people that asked me that too, you know what I mean? What is they? And basically I told them the same thing, you know what I mean? Me myself, I don't really know what they is, because it's really not no definitive proof, you know what I mean? I guess man just gave them the name Doug, man, but what are their real origin, origin, where they come from, you know what I mean? So I'm really stuck on that. Another thing I wanted to ask you, do you think they should be hunted and killed?
Only if you have definitive proof that they're doing the same thing as human beings. because with the animalistic nature that they possess, then this is true with them as it is with other animals, like tigers, mountain lions, even some bears. Once they get a taste for human blood, they got to be dealt with, because if you don't, then they gonna keep doing what they do. And you know, just like I know, that while we have guns, well, weapons of mass destruction, once you're in the woods, you don't make turf. And it don't matter what you got or how many people you got with you, and they can still manage to take one, two, or all of you out. So only if they're a problem. If they're not a problem, learn as much as you can about the ones that let you see them, as long as you're having a peaceful encounter. But once they give you that sign that, okay, the show's over, it's time for you to pack up and go, it's time for you to pack up and go and leave them alone. But yeah, I do believe that if you can prove that they're actually killing people, and it's the same one or the same pack, then they got to be dealt with. Because that means that when they start breeding, that's what they're going to teach their young ones, that we are the easiest prey. You don't have to run that fast to run down a human being like you got to do if you run it down a deer or elk or a bighorn sheep or something. That they easy prey, and they don't taste too bad either, especially the dark meat. The dark meat is very juicy, so.
Oh man, and you know what though, Roy? I agree with you though, because I think if you're in a situation and you know you're back against the wall and it ain't no other way out but for you to shoot, you know what I mean, you got to protect yourself. But I always say, you know what I mean, you got to deal with the repercussions if you don't kill this creature and they react. Because I think one day somebody gonna go out and shoot these things and they're gonna really react. Because I mean, I would be getting tired of getting shot at too.
Or shot and walking away, or having to run away and either dying somewhere later on, or just, you know, having to heal up and now you've been shot and you pissed off, and you know, it doesn't matter what human shot you. You know, everyone you see is a potential enemy that's going to shoot you. So you're probably going to start taking them out on sight. Better safe than sorry.
Absolutely. Well, Roy, with everybody waiting for and me, tell us about your accounting from the beginning to the end.
Well, my encounter happened back in July of 1981 in Metairie, Louisiana. It's a day that's going to always be burned into my brain. As long as my brain is operating at normal functions, it's going to always be burned into my brain. I'll never forget it. It was not only an eye-opening experience, but it knocked some barriers down to where you now know that monsters exist. They actually exist rather than in Hollywood, on films, on TV, and in books. They walk, they breathe, they move, all of that stuff. But I was living with my cousin at the time in Omaha, and it was me, him, another cousin of mine, and his mother. And she had asked me if I would help her drive to Louisiana. She was moving to Louisiana, which was a surprise because she kind of just dropped that on us all of a sudden. But we had a conversation about it, and I agreed to help her. You know, and she said she sent me back to Omaha on a bus that Friday, following Friday after we got there. So I had recently had a breakup with my girlfriend that I had been with for almost 2 years, and I was dealing with it okay, but I still was, was feeling the pangs from not being able to try to figure out how to work things out. But life goes on, so it would have been a great break to get to a deep place and not have to think about her so much. So I more than willing to help her. So we made the trip. It took us a couple of days, and we didn't unload the U-Haul that day. We actually waited till the next day. We just wanted to get something to eat and, lay down and go to sleep. So we got that done the next day, and she was telling me about the different sites and stuff down in Louisiana, and I was like, oh, well, I'd like to see that. So she said, well, I'll give you a tour before you go back. I'm like, okay. And she did that, and I got to go to a couple of restaurants and taste some Louisiana food, and I'm like, man, this is right here. This is what I need in my life right now. I don't know anybody that don't like to eat, but I do. So it was really, it was a great experience for as young as I was, and even though I had already lived in another state before, I had never been to Louisiana, so it was a good experience for me. Well, she took me to the French Quarters Thursday night, and she kind of did it, I guess, as a way to, this is kind of this little farewell tour, if you will. So I was down there, and man, I got down there and seen people walking around drinking alcohol, and the music was good, and nobody was having problems or anything. Everybody was getting along just fine, and just to have that many people together and for everybody just to be celebrating. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I was like, you know what? I'm not ready to go back to Omaha. I want to stay here. So we had a conversation about that, and she told me, well, you don't have to get a job, don't you? And she said, but I thought you was going to go to school. I told her, why can't I do both? She's like, oh, okay. Okay, well, I didn't know if she wanted to go to school down here or nothing. I'm like, well, I'm here. They got schools here. I might as well. So she helped me fill out some of my paperwork to get, grants and such, and submitted them to a couple of colleges. I was waiting to find out where I was going to get accepted to. But I decided to stay, and I, started job hunting that following Monday, and it only took me like 3 days to get a job. I got hired at a place called Chess King, and they're no longer in existence, unfortunately, but it was a great clothing store. It was a great clothing store. I mean, if you wanted to look like somebody from the flock of seagulls, we had what you needed. If you wanted to get some stuff like Michael Jackson, we had what you needed. So you could come down and pretty much put together a wardrobe or whatever kind of look you were going for. And we probably could accommodate you with that, though. And plus, we had a women's section in there, too. It wasn't as big as the men's section, but we did have a women's section in there. And that, to me, that was a bonus because now I got women coming in here, and I'm single, so, wink, wink, I get to see what the native wildlife look like in the city. And I was at work one day, and this girl came in the store. Okay, lady, girl, whichever one you want to put it. She was over 18, so I guess I should say lady. But she came in the store, and I was helping somebody, and I looked over at her and told her, hi, thanks for coming to Chess King. If you need anything, let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you. And she said, okay. And she walked around and started browsing. Well, I finished up with the people I was helping, and I was standing there at the counter, and we only had a couple other people in the store at the time, and my manager was there working with me also. And she was a woman, and I was looking at this woman that came in the store, and, well, I'm a young guy, pretty good. Well, I was in excellent shape. I was benching 300 pounds, and I could squat 500, so I was in pretty good shape. I was, a football player. And I was looking at her, and I'm like, I think I'm going to have to say something to her. So I walked over and asked her if she needed any help, and she asked me for a certain color in the shirt that she was looking at if we had any in the back. And I went back there and looked, and we did have them, so I brought a couple out and was showing them to her. And I guess we started flirting a little. I started flirting. I can't say she immediately started, but I know I started flirting with her. And I guess she took the bait and she started flirting back with me a little bit. Nothing too heavy or anything. I was respectful, and spent probably about half an hour, 40 minutes showing her around, talking to her, and she went to change the room to try the stuff on, and I went back to the counter and I waited till she came out, and when she came up as she was making her purchase, I asked her if she would like to go out on a date with me Friday night, and this was on a Wednesday. And she looked at me and she said, "Sure, I'll go. I'll go. What do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't know. We can go to a movie, go have dinner, and go for a walk. We can go down to the French Quarters. I'm new here, so I don't know. I know something about the city, but I don't know everything." She's like, "Oh, okay." Well, she said, "Dinner and the movie sound good." Okay. I said, "Well, how about I pick you up 7:00?" And she said, "Well, you can't come to my house and pick me up." And first thing went to my mind is, you asked all these questions and you didn't even ask if she had a boyfriend or was she married. Shame on you, Roy. And I kind of looked at her, and I guess sometimes my face can be real descriptive. And she's like, "No, I don't have a boyfriend, and no, I don't have a husband, if that's what you're thinking." I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking." I said, "Okay, well, give me your phone number." She's like, "I can't give you my phone number either." I'm like, "Okay, well, if you don't have a boyfriend or a husband, how come I can't have your phone number? You already told me I can't come by. What's going on?" She's like, "Well, my mother doesn't allow me to have men or boys come by the house to visit me or pick me up." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Now, while I did think that was strange, it wasn't out of the norm, back in the 80s, because you got some parents, mothers, fathers that don't want no boy come by the house or no man either, because in their mind we only want one thing, and while they may get it, they're not going to get it from my daughter. So I told her, I'm like, "Okay, well, how are we going to do this?" And she said, "There's a park close by my house. Why don't you just meet me up there?" I said, "Okay. What's the name of the park and how to get there?" Now, she told me how to get there, but I didn't write anything down. So as soon as she left out of the store, I talked with my manager and asked her, "Do you know how to get to this park?" And she said, "Yeah, I know exactly how to get there." I'm like, "Can you give me directions?" She's like, "She just gave you directions." I'm like, "I know, but I didn't write them down." So as soon as she gave me directions, I wrote them down. And she said, "So you got a date Friday night, huh?" I'm like, "Yes, ma'am, I sure do." She's like, "Well, have fun, be careful, and be respectful." I'm like, "I will." So Friday comes, I got off work at 5:00, and I just got something out of the store. Not that I stole it, I used my employee discount, and I just bought something out of the store to wear on the date. So I got dressed in the dressing room, and I left and proceeded to go up to the park. And it was a good little ride. I guess it's between, I'm saying, 15 and 20 miles away, because I worked in downtown New Orleans and I had to go to Metairie, so it's about 15, 20 minutes away. And I drove up there, and I got up there about 6:50, between 6:50, 6:55, and I parked my car and got out and walked in the park, and I looked around to see if she was there, and I'm like, "Okay, I did get here before she did." So I sat down to wait on her. A couple of minutes later, this guy walks up to me and asked me, "Oh, do I want to play basketball?" I told him, "No, I'm not here to play basketball. I'm here to meet somebody." And he's like, "Who are you here to meet?" Now, I've always been a type of person that when I'm talking to people, especially a total stranger, certain things you ask me, you're not going to get an answer to, because it's none of your business, and plus I don't know you. And that's just me. But I told him, when she get here, if you know who she is, then you'll know who I'm here to meet. He said, "Oh, all right, man." He said, "Well, my name is Herman." And we shook hands and stuff, and I said, "My name is Stubb. But that's my nickname, and I don't know this guy, so I'm not about to tell him my name is Roy. You get my street name." So we started chit-chatting a little bit. He was telling me that I didn't sound like I was from there. I'm like, "Well, where do I sound like I'm from?" He said, "I don't know, but you don't sound like you're from Louisiana." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, I said, well, I'm not from here. I'm from Nebraska. And he's like, oh, okay, you one of them Cowboys. I'm like, no, I'm not no Cowboy. He said, no, I'm talking about the football team. I'm like, Cornhuskers. He's like, yeah, that's what it is, because that's what Nebraska's known for, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So we chit-chatting back and forth, and he seemed like he was a pretty good dude, you know. He wasn't acting obnoxious or anything like that. And then these other guys came over. It was 5 of them. And they asked me the same thing. You gonna play basketball? And I'm kind of looking at what I got on. I'm like, I don't even have tennis shoes on. I mean, come on, dude. What are y'all thinking? But told them, no, I'm not here to play basketball. I'm here to meet somebody. And they, of course, just like Herman did, whoa, who you here to meet? I'm like, once you get here and you see her, then you'll know. So they all introduced themselves. I can't remember everybody's name right now. I don't have my journal in front of me, but I remember Little Bit, Diamond, Golf, and I can't remember the other guy's name right now, but we was talking and stuff, and I looked at my watch, and I was about 5 after 7, and I'm like, okay, she gonna be late. So they left because they were getting ready to play next, and so they got off court and started playing. And I'm just sitting there swatting at mosquitoes, waiting on her to show up. 7:15, come and go. 7:30, come and go. About 7:40, 7:45, I got that feeling in my stomach. She ain't gonna show. She done stood me up. But I know sometimes women can be fashionably late or up to an hour late. So, like, okay, maybe she'll show about 8 o'clock. Well, by the time 8 o'clock came, she wasn't there. I'm trying to figure out what else I'm going to do. And, you know, Herman and them is looking at me like, well, dang, dude, I thought you said you was meeting somebody. I'm like, I guess she ain't going to show up. And they're like, well, you know, you can come play basketball with us. I'm like, all right, I got some clothes in the trunk, man. I'll just go put that on and give me a minute. So I went in the bathroom right there at the park and changed into some clothes. But I always kept a change of clothes in the trunk along with a fishing pole, because I love fishing too, and you never know when you're going to see a body of water that needs to have, be fished. So I changed clothes and got out there. We played basketball till midnight. I mean, I didn't realize time had went by like that, but we played till midnight. And the reason I know it was midnight for a fact is because in Louisiana, you got basketball courts. And the majority of them, of course, you got basketball courts everywhere. But in Louisiana, a lot of the outdoor basketball courts have a cover over the top of them. It's made out of tin. And that way, because it rains so much down there, you never know when it's going to rain, you can still stay outside and play basketball, even if it's pouring down raining, as long as the wind's not blowing the water, up under there onto the court. But Monday through Thursday, the lights that stay on in the park till 9 o'clock. And on Fridays and Saturday nights, the lights stay on till midnight. And then Sunday, they don't cut them on at all. So once it gets dark Sunday night, you got to find something else to do or just sit in the park in the dark. But we played till midnight, and was standing there, shooting the breeze with them for a few minutes. And I asked them, where's the closest liquor store, man? I want me some beer now, so I'm cold to drink. And they's like, oh, you want some beer, huh? I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, we getting ready to go get some now. Why don't you just come and go with us? Now, I don't know these dudes from Adam. I met them 4 hours ago. They all seem like good dudes. Just your average guy trying to get by in life. I didn't get any kind of feeling that one or two of them I couldn't trust or that they were up to something. They all seemed like they was pretty good dudes, and they all been knowing each other since they was small kids. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and go with them. And but upon further thought, now if I hadn't been so vain about my car that I hadn't got that long ago, I could have just put, a few of them in the car, and we rode up to the liquor store and got the beer and came back to the park and had the other ones wait. But I wasn't about to put these sweaty dudes in my car, and I hadn't even had it for a month yet. I just wasn't willing to do that. So I think if I had done that, I would have never had an encounter. But I didn't. So we walked out of the park, and when you come out on the other side, and the park is not that big. If you get 100 people in that park, it would be pretty full if you got 100 people in that park. But so it's not a real big park. But we walked out the opposite side of the park that I came into, and we went down the street about 20, maybe 30 yards or feet, and they got onto the railroad tracks and started walking down the railroad tracks. And I'm like, okay, this is different, but I don't know anything about this neighborhood, so I'm going with them. Now, as you enter the railroad tracks, there's 3 buildings on your left-hand side. There's a small junkyard, then there's a tire shop, and there's a lumber yard. And behind each one of these buildings is one single street light. But the lights are spaced far enough apart that while you can walk under one, you'll be in, a well-lit area. But as you exit from that light, going toward the next light, you enter an area of gloom. I mean, it's dark enough that you got to be within 5 feet of somebody to actually be able to see them and identify who you're looking at. And then to the right, there's a field of thistles. Now, for anybody that doesn't know what a thistle is, it's a plant that starts out growing like a dandelion. But as it gets bigger, they get these big leaves on them with these long thorns on them. And I call them hypodermic needles because if you get stuck by one, that's what it feels like you got stuck by, is a hypodermic needle. But there's a field of them, I'm going to say it's about 150 yards or maybe slightly smaller. But it was a big field, and these things were thick over there, I'm like, man, did somebody plant them? What? Because they really thick, and they were tall. Because once we got on the tracks and walked up the street, the sides fell away from the railroad tracks to where you're kind of elevated up in the air about three, maybe 4 feet. And these thistles were that tall, I could barely see over the tops of some of them. So they had to be between 7 and 8 feet tall. But they were big, but once they get fully grown, they get this single purple flower at the top. And we walking along, and there's 3 guys in the front, 2 guys in the middle, and me and Herman are bringing up the rear. And as I'm walking along with him, we walking crunching on these white rocks that they put on the railroad tracks, and it just was a crunching noise that from 7 feet hitting the rocks. But I'm looking around. I'm not that I feel anything or that I'm scared or anything. I'm just looking around, being aware of my surroundings. And I looked over at the junkyard, and Herman said, "Did you see something?" I'm like, "No, man, I'm just, looking at the back of the building." Because there's a fence that goes up behind the buildings, and it's one of those tall chain link fences with the 3 strands of barbed wire at the top. So I'm just looking, at the back of the place, and I'm looking around, and he started asking me questions about kids. And it really didn't trigger anything in me to think that, okay, this guy is a freak or something, but I thought it was a little strange that, he asked me about kids, because he was asking stuff like, "Do you know how to change diapers?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got nieces and nephews. I've changed diapers before in my life." And why are you asking me this? He's like, "I just want to know." Now, I'm also a father at this time, but I'm not an expert by any means. That didn't come till much later on in life. But he asked me about feeding babies. Well, how much do they eat when they first born? And I said, a couple of ounces, and you burp them and make sure they dry and clean, and they'll usually go back to sleep, and then you'll have to get up a couple hours later. And then he asked me, what happened when they cry all night? What does that mean? And that's when I'm like, wait, dude, wait. Why are you asking me all these questions about kids? And he's like, oh, well, my girlfriend, she about to have a baby either the next week, within the next 2 weeks, man. And he said, I don't know nothing about being a father. I said, oh, okay. I said, well, first thing you need to do is breathe. That's the first thing you need with your grandmother, ask them questions. Talk with the other grandmother, ask her questions. Talk with anybody that you can out there that you don't feel like you get enough information from them. You can always go to the library and get you some books and read them. I said, but your life is going to change. But it's not going to change for the worse. It's a good thing, depending on how you look at what's about to happen, the change that's coming in your life. But as you know, I said, do you want to be a father? He's like, yeah, I'm real excited about being a father. He said, I'm just scared, man, because I don't know nothing about being a dad. I'm like, well, in this instance, you're going to have to learn as you go. But I congratulated him on the arrival of his child, and we was talking and stuff, and now we actually, by this time, we walked out of the first life, and we just entered into that area of gloom. And I was looking around again, and he was talking, and I seen out of my peripheral as I was looking to the right, because beyond this Stubblefield, there's houses on the other side of that field, and a couple of them had their back porch lights on, so I could clearly see they were houses. Airline Highway is less than 200 feet away from us on the other side of these buildings on the railroad track. So you can hear cars going up and down Airline Highway, not a whole bunch because it's late, but you can hear this. Now, when we left from the park, it was approximately 12:25. Approximately. I don't know exactly what time it was when we got on the tracks or what time it was when me and Herman started talking, but I know it was after 12:30. So as I'm looking to my right, I seen something black. Now, it came out of the thistles. I can't tell you if it ran out of the thistles, if it jumped out of the thistles, but I seen something black. And the first thing I did was to take off running. And I guess the other guys that were in front of me, without them even looking back to see what it was, they took off running too. And I got about 3 steps away from Herman, because I'm getting ready to get out of Dodge. At that time, I ran a Ford 340, and I was about to get out of town. I was on my way. Herman fell, or if this thing tripped him. But I heard him say, "Don't leave me." Now let me stop right there and back up just a bit. When we got on the railroad tracks, when he first seen I was looking at the back of that junkyard, he said, "Did you see something?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, there's a big black dog that's over there, and sometimes he get out." And he said, "All you got to do, since all of us are here, all you got to do is pick up some rocks and start throwing them at him and yelling, 'Get out of here,' and stuff. And usually he'll, keep barking and stuff, but he'll run his stuff back away from you." He said, "But it is a pretty big black dog. I think it's part Rottweiler and German Shepherd or Labrador, something like that. But he said it was a good-sized dog." So when he said that, I can't tell you, Marvin, why I didn't stop. I can't tell you why I didn't keep running, but something in his voice is something I had never heard in a human voice before. It was, I guess if terror had a voice, that's what it would sound like. Because he never, I'm not him, I'm sorry, I've never heard that sound that goes with that. I've never heard that before. It tugs at your heartstrings, I guess, or it triggers something in you that you can't just leave them. Now, I'm figuring it's a dog at this time, because I didn't get a good look at it. I just seen something big and black come out of them thistles, and I'm like, okay, time to go. I'm not trying to get bit. But when I heard him say that, I stopped and I slid a little bit because I'm on these rocks, but I bent down and I picked up 2 handfuls of these white rocks. And I turned around and I ran back toward him about 3 steps. And I had my arm cocked to throw, my right hand cocked back to throw this handful of rocks at this thing. And I got my mouth open, getting ready to say, "Get out of here. Get out of here." And I stopped. because squatting over Herman with his face no less than 8 inches max, I'm going to say between 6 and 8 inches, is the biggest dog I've ever seen in my life. And I mean the biggest dog that I've ever seen in my life. Now I can only see the outline of it. I can't make out any features or anything clearly. But Herman is laying on his back, propped up on his elbows, and he's got his face looking straight up in this thing's face. And as I'm standing there, my arm came down, and then I guess I dropped both handfuls of rocks, and I'm standing there looking, and I'm like, what the blank is that? What is that? What is that? And Herman's not making any sounds at all. He's not kicking. He's not struggling with the thing. It's like he's petrified. And the thing's not growling. It's not showing any teeth. It's just looking at him. Well, I guess the other dudes heard me stop running, and they stopped running and started coming back. And they're still behind me. And they're hollering, what the blank is that, man? What is that? Is that dog? What is that? I'm not saying anything because I'm trying to figure out what I'm looking at. So, as I'm standing there, and just seem like time is really slowed down, I'm trying to, see what the hell this thing is, and I heard somebody say, don't shoot it. Now, I'm standing in the middle of the railroad tracks, so I can't tell you exactly how they were positioned behind me, but I know they would have had to move to the left and the right of me in order to see around me to see what I was looking at. So I'm glad this dude didn't shoot, because I don't know how good his aim is. I could have got hit, but I'm also glad he didn't shoot, because if he didn't kill it, then I'm the next closest thing, from them to this thing, and I'm approximately 10 feet away. I mean, I'm standing in that second light, but this thing is not in the light. It's a couple of feet, maybe 3 feet outside the light in that gloom where you can see the outline, but like I said, you can't see no clear features. So when whoever said don't shoot it said that, I'm sorry, let me back up. As I'm looking at this thing, I started thinking I should have kept running. But I didn't, and I'm here now, so you can't run now. So I started thinking about how can I get myself out of this situation. And a lot of thoughts went through my head real fast. I mean, you got to come up with the right plan, and you got to come up with the right plan fast. So a lot of stuff came and went in my head, and it was going real fast, like a bullet train moves real fast. But I didn't think any of them was going to be what I needed to do to get out of there. But when I guess I must have made a couple of steps to think about going to get on that chain link fence and climb up, because I know in the building that I was behind, if I got up to the top of that fence, I was going to get chewed up on that barbed wire. But if I got to the top, I'll be able to actually get on top of that building, then I could run across it and drop down. And when I drop down off the front of it, I'll be right next to Airline Highway. And hopefully I could get somebody to stop or something. I don't know, man. I was young. I did have some experience in life, but nothing like I have now. But, that's the best thing I could come up with. So, going back to when somebody said, don't shoot it, this thing looked up, and it looked at all of us. It looked like one motion where it looked from left to right, but it was a slight hiccup in the movement where it was looking at each one of us individually. And then it went back to looking at her. And I made a couple of steps to my right. I must have did that or shuffled my feet on them rocks, because when I did that, this thing ignored Herman and came forward 2 steps. And when it did, it put its upper half into the light where I could clearly see what I was looking at. But when I seen this hand come out of the darkness, and yes, I had said hand, not a paw, a hand. It just was enormously big, and it had some of the biggest claws I've ever seen on anything in my life. They weren't hooked like a fish hook or anything like that. They were curved, but they weren't wickedly curved. She had just enough curve in her hand that when she put it down flat on the ground, the very tip of her finger wouldn't touch the ground because of the curve of her nail. And they had to be 3 inches, 2.5 to 3 inches for sure. And the hand had to be 14 inches. I mean, I ain't never seen nothing like that. And just as black, I mean, the color just, it almost looked like that the black that she had on her kind of devoured the light. That's how black it was. I mean, I could see it, but it was just a shade of blackness that I guess at that time I had never seen before. And as she came into the light, her eyes started to glow or reflect the light. Not an internal glow, but a reflection of the light from the light we were standing up under. And they were the color of, if you take the full moon when it's orange and a full moon when it's white, and if you combine those colors, it's not the color of a mug of beer with a light shining through it, but the color of combining the colors of the moon. At the time, that's the best description I could give you of the color of her eyes. And they were about big as golf balls, but they were spaced further apart than a human being. And the head, you know, I'm not looking at a German Shepherd head. I'm not looking at a hyena head. If I had to give a description on the bulkiness of her head, the closest dog I would pick would have to be an Alaskan Malamute, because she did have a muzzle, but it wasn't extremely long like a German Shepherd or a Doberman Pinscher, but she did have a muzzle. And 24, 28 inches is my best estimate with, from side to side. And the ears weren't on the top of the head, they were on the side of the head. Of that, I'm absolutely sure. They were not on the top of her head like a dog's head. They were on the side. And she came forward into the light, and she looked at me, and my whole body locked up. I couldn't have run if I wanted to. My brain is screaming for me to run, and I couldn't move. I couldn't move a muscle. So I just stood there and peed on myself. And the look that she gave me, the feeling I got was, go ahead and run. I dare you. Go ahead, try to get away. I dare you. That's the feeling I got from the look she gave me. I wasn't looking at something that was just like you looking at a big dog. There was an intelligence in that look that she gave me. It was something I've never experienced before, and I haven't experienced since then. A look of, like, I know what you're thinking, and I want you to try. I dare you. Try it. And I stood there, and somebody took off running. I don't know who it was. I don't know who it was because I'm not taking my eyes off this thing. But the muscles that I seen in just her forearm, she was, her forearm had to be close to the size of my thighs at the time. And I'm squatting 500 pounds. Just her forearm. But I noticed that from her elbow to her wrist was a whole lot longer than from her elbow to her shoulder. And she had biceps, shoulders like a human being, but she was down on all fours. So I could see the upper half of her decently, but you get a different perspective when you see them standing on 2 feet. And I'm just like, that's a werewolf. That's a werewolf I'm looking at. Now I know what I'm looking at. That's a werewolf. And she looked at, I guess the guy that had pulled the gun out was still standing there with the gun because she looked away from me when she figured that I'm not going to move. And she looked directly at him, I'm assuming. I never turned around to look and see. But she growled, and then she did that smile that dogs give you. Well, I don't know why people call it a smile, but she raised up her jaws to where I could see her teeth. Her canines were every bit of 3 inches long. Every bit. And every tooth, not that she opened her mouth up all the way, she had her mouth shut. It's just that she raised her jaws up, but every tooth that I saw was a cutting tooth. Not a molar, not like a dog's back teeth. They were all cutting teeth. It reminded me of looking at a bear trap. The way her teeth interlocked. And that was enough right there. Why I couldn't run still, I don't know. I guess I was terrified myself. But she's got her hindquarters over Herman's head. And she's not paying him any attention. It's like he wasn't even a factor anymore. And he didn't move. He didn't try to get up and run. He didn't start hollering. He's in the same position he was in. And, you know, when you think about how all of this happened, and when you need a superhero not going to show up. Superman not going to be there. Batman not going to be there. You're on your own. And you got to figure out exactly what you're going to do if you want to get away with your life. And I couldn't come up with anything. I could not come up with one plan other than to try to make it to that fence and get away from that thing. But when she came into the light and she stopped looking at me and looked past me, she growled. Now, it wasn't really loud, but it was deep, and I could feel it because when she came forward, that means now she's closer to me. Now, my 10 feet that I had between us had shrunk down to 6 or 7. And I could get a real good look at this thing. Her coat was black, but she had splashes of gray in it. Not a uniform pattern, almost like a patchwork quilt would be. A splash here and a splash there. But I also noticed that she didn't have any leaves. Her hair wasn't knotted up and nasty looking. In my best guesstimation, she looked almost like she had just got done getting groomed, like somebody just brushed her. Her fur was approximately 2 inches long, but I could see clear muscle definition on her. And she was clean looking, and if you came out of them thistles, you should at least have some kind of leaves stuck in you, debris or something. But I didn't see any of that. I got a good look at her. It's not like she just jumped up there, was over Herman, and looked at us and then jumped off. No, this encounter happened with the time that we arrived at the liquor store. It had to be between 3 and 5 minutes. But When she growled, I peed on myself again because I felt it. I don't know if it went to my head and went down to my feet or came from my feet and went up to my head. But also at that time, I stopped being able to hear. It just got really quiet around me. Only thing I heard was this thudding sound. And later on, I realized that my heart was beating so loud, so hard and strong that it made me deaf for a few minutes. That's all I could hear, but I could no longer hear them dudes hollering. I couldn't hear her growling anymore. I could see her, but I couldn't hear anything. And, you know, why that happened to me, I have no idea. Why I was with them guys, I have no idea. But once she did that growl, you know, if you got a dog that has fleas, if they have fleas, and they might be sitting down and then all of a sudden they make this real quick twitch and start biting at the base of their tail or on their haunches or something, making that little chewing motion. Not that she did that, but she twitched like that and looked to her right. I mean, it was a twitch, and then she looked to her right, and then she stood up on two legs. There was no snapping and popping. It was a smooth motion without any sound. And that's when I seen that this thing had 4 breasts. And that blew my mind right there. Because, excuse me, I'm not seeing a total of 8 breasts that will be on a female dog. All I've seen was 4. Now, I never did look any lower than that because I'm not going to take my eyes off the business end, them jaws. And she looked over to her right. Now, if I had to describe the size of her breast, I would say on a human female, it would have been a double D. But on her, it was more like a C cup. And I'm not talking about the kind of breast that a female dog that had puppies has. I'm talking about the kind of breast that a woman that goes to the gym on a regular basis, not so that she can get bulky like a man, but just so she can stay fit. They didn't jiggle and bounce all over everywhere. When she stood up, they were firm breasts. They were covered with fur. I'm pretty sure she probably had a 6-pack under that fur. Not that I seen it from where I was at, because I wasn't looking that low. But I'm pretty sure she did, if these things happen. But to see something that's got the upper half of a human being, but yet it's standing on 2 dog legs. My mind at that time, I believe my mind snapped a little bit. It didn't snap all the way, but I believe my mind snapped a little bit because a lot of things in life after that happened, I view entirely different now. It's not a normal view or not the word escapes me right now, but I just look at things differently now than I did before that. And her bicep had, if she had flexed her arm, her bicep probably would have been the size of my head. Not that I have a really big head, but I got a pretty good cassava melon sitting on my neck, but it's not extreme. It's not big as Herman's, I know that. But she looked to her right, and she flexed her legs slightly, and she jumped off of them tracks and landed between 18 and 20 feet in them thistles. Now, I wouldn't even go in them thistles if I had on a shark diving suit because of the size of them thorns on the end of them leaves. And she just jumped right in there and took off running. And while I couldn't see her running, I could mark her progress because she was going so fast, and she would lay the thistles down and they would pop back up. Now, if we ran through there, thistles would be broken. You'd be able to hear them breaking, and all of them wouldn't come back up. Every one that she ran over came right back up. Now, when she stood up and looked to her right, I took a short glance and looked to my left because I'm facing her, so the thistles are on my left. And I saw 6 red lights in those thistles between 5 and 6 feet in the air. Now, I've told my encounter before on a couple of other people's podcasts. A lot of people are saying those were her pups. No, they were not pups. I know what a light looks like, and they were red. It looked like they were the size of red reflectors that are on bicycles. And if you take a black magic marker and start in the middle and black out all of the middle until you get about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge, that's what I saw. Nothing has a pupil that big. And I've read and heard a lot about dogmen. Never have I heard about a pupil being that big. Those were lights. And they were standing in a V formation. 2 on the front, 1 to the left, and 1 to the right. It's just that they were tightly packed in that V formation. And unless somebody could give me proof positive that that was her pups or other dogmen, in my estimation, those were lights. And because of how bright they were. They were really bright. That's why I was able to see them. She took off in that direction. Now, I need to back up just 2 steps. Because when she stood up and she turned and looked in that direction, I'm not 100% sure, Marvin. I'm in the high 90s, but I can't say I'm 100% sure. But it looked to me like she had a gold hoop earring in her left ear. Now, it could have been a tag, but I don't see how, if it had been a reflection of the light on her fur, how it would have shown a gold color. Not bright yellow, not orange, but gold colored. That right there just, it sent my mind somewhere else. And I'll come to that in just a minute. But it sent my mind somewhere else. Because if she got a gold earring in her ear, who put it there? Did she put it there? Did another human being put it there? I don't know. I don't have the answer to those questions. I wish I did, but I don't. But once she took off and left, shortly after that, I guess I started hearing the guys hollering again, and we ran up to Herman, and, you know, Herman, you all right? Herman, you all right? Herman's not saying nothing. He's got this blank expression on his face, and his mouth is open, and he's got a little bit of drool coming out of the corner of his mouth, but he's not responding to us at all. And we got him up off the ground, and I put one of his arms around me, and Shorty Mac was up there with me. He put his other arm around me, and now that I think about it, why didn't we go straight back to the house? I don't understand that. I'm still going to have to think about that some more to come up with an answer that makes sense to me. I'm sorry, not to the house, but to the park. Right now, I don't have that answer. But they wanted to still go to the liquor store. They said it was closer to go to the liquor store than it would to go back to the house. This is what I asked them when we were walking. Not then, but later on as we were walking. So we got to walk down the railroad tracks, past the third light, exit from the tracks, to which means now we're going to be in pitch darkness, and we got to walk through this path going through the same thistle that this thing just went through. And to me, that just didn't seem like a good idea, but I'm not about to leave from the herd, if you will. I'm not about to leave from the herd and go out by myself. So we did that, even though to me we were going extremely slow, and I wanted to go so much faster. But with the condition that Herman was in, I didn't leave him in the beginning, and I can't leave him now. That's just, I don't know if God touched me at that time and gave me that, or maybe my inner fortitude came to the front when that thing left, but I couldn't just leave him. Even though he was there with his childhood friends, people he done known all life, you know, I made a commitment and I got to see it through, I guess. Never been able to figure that out. But we got to the liquor store. It's approximately 12:50 or 12:53. Now, that's how I know my encounter did not just last a few seconds. It took between 3 and 5 minutes from start to conclusion. We get around the front of the liquor store, set Herman down on this little ledge in front of it, and I got my hand on his chest, but I'm not looking at him. I'm looking in the store because 3 guys went in the store, and they're in there asking the clerk, man, can you call the police? Please call the police. And he's looking at all of them like, he got this look on his face like, what the hell? What's going on? And they just asking him, can you please call the police, man? Can you please call the police? Finally, he's like, what the hell are y'all talking about? He's like, man, we just seen a monster. We just seen a monster out there on the railroad tracks, man. Can you call the police? As soon as they said that, his whole demeanor changed. His whole demeanor changed. He immediately went from what's going on to, well, I don't know what y'all been smoking or snorting or shooting, but I need to make y'all selections and then exit from my store. I'm getting ready to close up. And they're like, man, are you not listening to what we saying? We just seen a monster. We seen a werewolf. He's like, yeah, whatever. Make your selection. Come on up here so you can pay for them. And so you can exit my store. I'm getting ready to close up. So they didn't get anything because they still telling him. And finally, I guess he got fed up and he's like, you know what? Y'all can just leave. So I'm told Shorty Mac, I said, here, hold Herman, let me go talk to him. Maybe I can approach him in some kind of way to at least he'll let me use the phone to call the police. But as they coming out of the store and I got ready to go into the store, Shorty Mac said, man, he done blanked on himself. And I said, yeah, I know he peed on himself already. He said, no, man, he done blanked on himself. I'm like, oh, he done evacuated both of his bowels. Okay. So I got ready to go into the store anyway, and the dude told me, no, don't come in here. Don't come in here. Well, he didn't say it, but he gave me that look. So I'm like, kind of, why? And he just said, I'm going to close. So as soon as they came out, he locked the door. But just before Diamond walked out of the store, he turned, he said, well, man, is that your car parked in the back of the building? And the dude said, yeah, why? He said, can you at least go and move your car up to the front of the building while we here so we can make sure that thing don't get you? He said, yeah, whatever, bye. And he closed, he escorted, pushed him out the door, and he closed and locked the door. And then he went over and just kind of stood there for a minute looking at us. And when I turned back, the Shorty Mac, he's brushing at Herman's hair. He's brushing at his hair, talking about, man, what is this stuff in his hair? And everybody come over and, we looking at him. He's like, I don't know what it is. And he took his finger and wet it, and he's rubbing. He's like, man, I can't get this stuff out of his hair. So I walked over there, and I'm like, let me see what are you looking at, But before that happened, when we first got around there, I had been trying to get Herman to respond, and I had gave him a few slaps in his face. Not too hard, at least. I hope they wasn't that hard, based on my anxiety level at the time. I hope they wasn't that hard, but he never responded, so I'm assuming that I didn't strike him that hard. But I'm looking at Herman, and he's got this white circle in his head, Marvin. It's a little bit bigger than I know for a fact, when I first met Herman, that wasn't there in his head. I played basketball with this dude for 4 hours, with him and against him. There was no white spot in his head. Of that, I am 100% sure. No way that was there before this. And I even wet my finger and was brushing at it, and I actually took his hair and separated it down, trying to look to see what it was. It went all the way down to his scalp. And I couldn't do anything but stand there and, just look at him like, what the blank? What is this about now? But we got him up, and now we got to walk back to the park. And I'm going with them because once I get to the park, I can get in my car and I can go. We on extremely high alert because we went through the neighborhood. Every sound that didn't sound like a car going by, we stop and we listen. You hearing what the blank is that, what the blank is that. People looking around, but in the meantime and in between time, everybody's talking. I was talking too, but not as much as them. And there's a lot of, man, did you see that? That was a monster, dude. That was a monster. That was a werewolf. That was a werewolf. And one dude said, did you see that? It had titties too? It had titties. I mean, all this conversation is going on. But if you had heard a stick break, it would have been dead silence from us, and you would have had 6 sets of eyes looking in that direction, trying to figure out what that was. So it took almost 45 minutes for us to get from the liquor store back around to the park, because we pretty much got to drag Herman. Every now and again, he might take 1 or 2, possibly 3 steps, but for the most part, we dragging him. And he's still not responding to anything. He just got this blank expression on his face. I don't even remember seeing him blink. He just got this blank expression on his face. But we get around to the park. We exit out of the park. And I'm like, okay, where are we going now? It's like, Herman house is right here. So we went across the street, walked down the street 2 houses, and went up on the porch. And I set him on the porch and was pushing him up against the railing on the porch, so he wouldn't fall forward, because if you let him go, he's just going to slump over to the side or come face forward, and I didn't want him to fall and bust his face on the sidewalk. So 2 dudes is up there, one beating on the door, the other one is ringing the doorbell. And it's after 1 o'clock in the morning. His mother gets up and comes to the door. She got her night clothes on, and of course she's not happy. What the hell is y'all beating and ringing my doorbell like that? What the hell is going on? And first thing they said, something's wrong with Herman. Something's wrong with Herman. We seen a monster. Something wrong with Herman. And she's standing there looking like, what? What? Wait a minute. What? I can't understand all y'all talking at once. What's going on? Finally, something's wrong with Herman. We seen a monster and almost got him, but something's wrong with Herman. And she's like, something wrong with Herman? What you talking? Where's Herman at? He's right there. So she walks out and come out the door. She's like, Herman? He don't respond. She called him again. Herman, but she walked up close to where, she walked up right next to him, and she looked at me, real quick like, who the hell is you? But she didn't ask me that. She just gave me that look. And then she's looking at Herman because she had turned the porch light on, and she's like, Herman, baby, what's wrong with you? Talk to me. Herman, and she shook him by his shoulder. He's not responding. And she's like, did he use the bathroom on himself? And it's like, yes, ma'am. He boo-booed and he peed on himself. She's like, oh, my God, what y'all done did to my son? Now, I haven't said anything to this lady because I don't know her, and she don't know me. So I'm just looking at her, and I can understand why she's acting like that. She's a parent. Something's wrong with her son. I can understand that. But she said, don't nobody leave. I'm about to call the police. As soon as she said that, I moved Herman over a little bit so I could lay him down on the porch where he would actually be able to lay down on the porch with his feet on the steps. I turned, I walked out of her yard. As soon as I got out of her yard, I walked in the street and I started hauling ass down the street to my car. Now, 3 houses up from Herman, 2 or 3 houses, not exactly sure, there were some people sitting on the porch. And I heard them say, "Wow, I wonder where he running from." Okay, the reason that I did that is because I had bought a gun in Omaha off the street from somebody that I knew. He told me that that gun hadn't been used to commit a murder, hadn't been used in no bank robbery or anything, but, people going to say whatever they going to say in order to make a sale. It was only $100, and I got a .357 Magnum. So when she said she was going to call the police, immediately it clicked in me that with the condition that he's in and the story that we have to tell about what happened to him, either they going to want to drug test everybody, people are going to go downtown so that you can be interrogated, and if you find out I got a car, without them knowing exactly what had happened to Herman, with them thinking that maybe we gave him some kind of hallucinogenic, and maybe because none of them knew me, maybe I sold it to them, then they're going to want to search my car. If they find that gun, and I come to find out later on that it had been used to kill somebody, or in a bank robbery, or whatever it had been used to commit a crime, if the police could find out about it, all I know is 9/10 of the law is possession, and that gun is in my possession. So that means whatever it was used for, since I got it, they're going to try to put that on me. I'm not about to have that. I ran to my car. I popped the trunk open, and yes, in front of God and everybody else, I took them wet shorts off, them wet underwear, and my tennis shoes, and I put on the shorts that I had on and jumped into my sandals and got in my car. When I pulled away from the curb, my back tires were spinning. I made a U-turn right there in the middle of the street. I headed back to Airline Highway. I didn't even stop for the stop sign. I just blew right through it, and I almost hit somebody, and I almost had somebody hit me because they laid on their horn. I didn't even give a damn. I drove straight back to my apartment. I ran in the house. First thing I did when I slammed the door and locked it was slide my couch over in front of the door. Then I went in the kitchen and got the refrigerator. I unplugged it and pulled it in the front room, put it right up in front of that couch, and I plugged it back in. And then I went into my bedroom and got my box of bullets down and my speed loaders, and I loaded my speed loaders. And then I went and got me my bottle of Jack Daniel's Green Label, and I took a couple of swigs straight out of the bottle just to try to calm my nerves. And then the replay started about what had happened. And all the questions that you ask yourself about what just happened. Why did you see that? And oh my God, monsters are real. Werewolves do exist. They do exist. And my life changed for the worse for the next 3 years. I couldn't trust anybody. I almost was ready to drop out of school and leave from Louisiana and go back to Nebraska. But I had made a commitment to go to school. Now, I spent the whole weekend like that. I don't even remember getting up making nothing to eat. I remember going to the bathroom, and when I would find myself falling asleep, I would snap back awake and start drinking again. But I never remember laying down and getting even an hour's worth of sleep that whole weekend. I was supposed to be back to work Monday. I called off because I wasn't ready to go back to work. I needed to get my mental state under control to the best of my ability at the time. Because when you close your eyes and you see this thing, or even when your eyes is open and you're thinking about it, you still see that thing. But I got all these questions. I can't call anybody and ask anybody to try to get any answers. All I can do is try to get the answers to the best of my ability from myself, and I have nothing to go on other than Hollywood movies, books I've read, or if I have been fortunate enough to run across somebody that had a legend or a folk tale or a fairy tale that would tell me about werewolves, then take knowledge from whatever they said about that. I didn't have any of that. But when I got to work Tuesday, I know I was a different person than the person that left Friday, because my manager asked me within the first hour that I was there, "Roy, are you okay?" And I told her, "No, I'm not." She said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I don't want to talk about it." But every sound that I heard that I didn't associate with a normal sound I'd have heard in that store, I went and investigated, because I took my gun to work with me, and I wasn't supposed to have it in the store. I took my gun to work with me. And right now, as we talking, back then, with what made sense to me at the time, Marvin, is that girl or woman that came in the store that asked me out, that I asked out on a date, based on how she stood me up and the earring, that werewolf I seen was her. That's all I had to go on at that time. There weren't any Dogman podcasts. There weren't any Dogman researchers back then. At least I didn't know any. So I had to go with what I knew. A werewolf is a person that shapeshifts into that monster. So in my mind, she was that monster. Now, it may sound crazy. Okay, I'll give you that. But if you think about how Herman's hair turned white, some kind of chemical change had to take place within his body. What triggers that chemical change? I guess you have to reach a certain state of fear in order for that to happen. We only use a certain percentage of our brain, and there are scientists that have said that if we could use 80% of our brain, a human being could fly on their own, in their opinion. Nobody I know uses 100% of their brain capacity. Imagine what they could do if they did. But until somebody could tell me, even today, 100%, with no doubts, and have facts and evidence to back it up, that a human being cannot transform from a human into a werewolf, then I'm allowed to have my opinion on that until I'm proven wrong. But I talked with my boss later on, because she kept at me all day. "What's the matter with you, Roy? I can tell something bothering you. I know you don't have any family down here. What's the matter? You acting really strange." So finally, I guess I just needed to talk to somebody, and I told her what happened. She didn't interrupt me. She didn't ask me no questions. And when I got done talking, she said, "You seen a loop guru?" And I said, "Have you not been listening to what I said? I'm not talking about no dude." And she kind of did a little chuckle. She's like, "I'm not talking about a dude either." She said, "I'm talking about, that's what they call werewolves here in Louisiana, a loop guru." I said, "Who the hell, what the hell is a loop guru?" And she went on to tell me that a loop guru is a French werewolf. That allegedly somebody was one that came over here in the Great Migration to the United States, the land of good and plenty, the land of riches, and they brought this curse with them. And as the legend goes, a loop guru is a person that turns into a werewolf that has been cursed. But they can pass the curse on to another person by biting them or scratching them. And the only way that you can break the curse, if you happen to be the one that gets scratched or bitten, is you have to kill the one that scratched or bit you. I'm like, "Okay, well," she said, "Were you scratched or bitten?" "No." I said, "Well, how do you kill them?" She said, "Well, according to what my grandmere told me, is you have to get some rock salt, some oil, and some fire." And this is how I know my mind has snapped a little bit, because the first thing went through my mind is, this woman, I ain't talking about cooking this damn thing. I'm talking about killing it. And I said, okay, what am I supposed to do with the rock salt and the oil and the fire? She said, well, you throw some rock salt on them, and they're supposed to be highly allergic to rock salt. It burns them. And while they're trying to get the rock salt off of them, that's when you hit them with the oil. I said, okay, and once you got the oil on them, what? She said, you set them on fire. I said, okay, that's not going to work for me. That's not going to work for me at all. Because with my luck, first thing going to happen is I'm going to throw the rock salt on them. And while they're trying to get this burning rock salt off of them, then going to start, thinking about what they're going to do to me. And it just, when I get the oil on them and I go to light the match, the wind going to blow, put the match out, and then I'm going to really be up the creek. So that ain't going to work for me. I said, I'm just going to have to go with the old-fashioned silver bullet and a gun. And she said, well, I'm just, you asked me, and I just gave you the best answer that I could on what I was told. I'm like, okay, thank you. And she asked me again, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm not okay. I've seen a monster. I'm not okay. And I don't know when I'm going to be okay again, if I ever am. So, for the next 3 years, I didn't date. I didn't make any friends. I just went to school, and I went to work, and going to work, I had to close sometime. Not getting out of there till 9:30, maybe 10 o'clock. I got to go out the back door in the alley to get in my car. It's dark in that alley. I didn't know if that thing had followed me, but I'm thinking that it's that woman, so she know where I work. She don't know where I live, but she know where I work. But I'm here to tell you, in those 3 years, Marvin, if she had walked in the front door of that building, I would have tried to blow her chest out her back. Because in my mind, that's what that creature was. It was her. And she set me up. Now, what her fascination with Herman would have been, I have no idea. Was he supposed to be part of the plot to get me? Was he supposed to be the one to lure me down on them tracks? In order for that to happen, she would have to be a master tactician to plan that out and for it to work out exactly like she planned. I don't know. That's how I know my mind had snapped. Because any flight of fancy that made 10% sense to me, I was willing to entertain. But I wouldn't even stay. When it started getting dark outside, if I didn't have to work, it's time for me to go in the house. I got to barricade the door and get my buddy, Jack Daniels, and that's who's going to keep me company that night. My grades started suffering. My play on the football field started suffering. My life changed. I became almost a shell of who I had been. Talkative, outgoing, very friendly. I was not the same person. But I talked to one of my brothers one day. I finally felt like I needed to talk to somebody. And I talked to him, and I told him what happened, and I was for sure he was going to make fun of me. But he didn't. He didn't, and I was really surprised. He said, well, I can tell by the way you talking, man. I'm your brother, and I've been knowing you your whole life. I can tell by the way you talking that something happened to you. I'm not exactly sure what, but since I wasn't there, only thing I have to go by is how you're acting. So he taught me how to meditate, and it wasn't easy. Because one of the hardest things at that time for me to do was to close my eyes. But that's part of meditating. So it took a while for me to be able to do that. And it helped. I think that is what brought me back from the edge of the rabbit hole. I believe that's what it was, because I was doing that 2 or 3 times a day. Whenever I had spare time, I would do it to practice, to try to do it, to try to compartmentalize what had happened to me. Not forget, just compartmentalize it and put it in the back of my mind. But always know that it's there. And I got to the point of where I could go outside and stay out 30 minutes after it got dark. Then I'm going in. And I progressively got better to where I pushed it to an hour. hour and a half, 2 hours, till I was able to actually go to a nightclub again and not be freaking out because it's after 1 in the morning and I gotta walk across the street to the parking lot, and I parked at the end of the parking lot just so I could be able to be one of the first ones to get out of the parking lot and beat the rush for the crowd. So my whole life changed behind that. I'll never forget it, never. But I started writing about it in my journal, and I was writing every day. Every now and again, I'll go back and read what had happened to me. And even today, if I read it, it would sound incredible. But I know what happened to me. I know what I've seen. I talked with my father about this when he was on his deathbed, well, shortly before he died. And he raised all of us, my brothers and my sister, that when your eyes see something, that means that's what your eyes saw. Don't try to convince yourself that your eyes is playing tricks on you. He said, "Have you been drinking?" I said, "Nope." He said, "Have you been smoking marijuana?" I said, "No." He said, "Have you been sniffing any paint and glue, anything like that?" I said, "No. I just been playing basketball and drinking hot faucet water." He's like, "God gave you eyes for a reason. That's so that you can see danger when it's coming. So you can see the worst thing you're going to see in your life, unfortunately, or the best thing that you've ever seen in your life. He gave you eyes for a reason, boy. Trust your eyes." I said, "Okay, Dad, you're right. You're right." So I know what I saw. Now, did I ever go back and check on Herman or those other guys? No, I did not. And the reason I didn't is because I just met those guys that day. I didn't know them from Adam. I wanted to. I actually made 3 attempts to go. But as soon as I got the 2-lane and airline highway, I turned the car around and went back because I had too much terror still about even going to that area. I know a monster is in that area. And my grandmother told me when I was little, if you was lucky enough to get away the first time, don't take your damn fool ass back so you can get got. So I didn't go back. I didn't feel like I owed them anything. Now, after I found out what happened to Herman, I feel real bad about not going back. But at that time, you couldn't have paid that. They didn't have enough money in Fort Knox, gold, silver, cash money, to get me to go back to that park, day or night. I'm not doing it. I know what lurks around there. I'm not putting myself in harm's way. So I just went on the best I could. And when my knee got messed up and I'd actually got a scholarship to go to college, and I lost that because, well, I got my knee tore up. So I had to figure out now what's the next step in life. I thought I'd be able to make it to the NFL or at least get a shot. And once that got taken away from me, now I got to figure out what's next. So I went back to Nebraska and just, started living again. But that's pretty much my encounter, and I'm okay if people don't believe me. I'm okay if you believe me. I have no reason to lie, nothing to gain. But I will say this. Evidently, someone believed me enough that I was telling the truth, that not too long ago, I actually just went and did filming for my encounter to be played on These Woods Are Haunted. So somebody believes me. I don't know if it's the TV ratings or what, but I'm okay with that. So I can't tell everybody when it's supposed to come out. They haven't let me know. But if I get a chance and Marvin has me back on and I get an update on that, I'll be sure and let you guys know what's going on, because I'm supposed to have a hand in the designing of what I saw. So other than that, that's my encounter, and I survived it, thank God. And knowing that these things exist, especially with as many people that are coming out now with their sightings or experiences, it's not that I needed validation, but in a twisted sort of way, it's nice to know that I'm not the only one. So have to say about that, Marvin. I guess if you
go ahead, finish.
I was just gonna say if you got any other questions you'd like to ask me.
I got a question. I want you to let the listeners know about the one guy and what this did to him over the years. Herman.
Oh, you want me to go into that?
I just want you to base up, tell him what happened. He was so traumatized. What happened to him over the years?
Okay. After I did my first encounter about it, I got curious. Something Dick said to me made me want to at least see if I could find out. I mean, I know a lot of years had passed, and I wasn't sure if I wasn't sure if I wanted to go down that rabbit hole again, but I decided, all I can do is try. Don't nothing beat a failure but a try. So I got in touch with one of my relatives in Texas, and his girlfriend, she knows a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people. And I just asked her to put some feelers out to see if they could locate any of these guys. Now, the description that I was given of them, of course, was from their early 20s. And I would assume everybody's at least in their late 40s or early 50s now. But I don't know if it was good luck, bad luck, the path that I'm supposed to walk, but I actually made contact with Herman's son. I'm trying to think of a way to say this without cursing. Okay, so I'll say it like this. I understand how when a parent disappears from a child's life, it affects them in many different ways. But in the black society, when your father leaves from your life willingly, if he's not killed, gets sent to jail, something like that, sometimes the males have strong feelings, strong negative feelings toward their father. Herman's son is one of those. He is so pissed off at this stage in his life about the lack of a father-son relationship that he had with his father, that I know he needs professional help. I know that, and I don't have enough letters after my last name to help him. I just don't, even with all the experience that I have in life, I don't. But I do know and pray that one day he does make peace with himself about his father. But what happened was, when I talked to Herman's son, first of all, he's a gang member now, so that's a hill right there you got to climb. But he is so disrespectful. He believes that me and those other guys gave his father some mushrooms, embalming fluid, sniffing glue, acid, whatever you will. He's not willing to budge one iota off the fact that his father seen a monster and had a monster in his face. He refuses to believe that. Okay, I have to accept that if that's what he believes. But his attitude is full of such negativity that I only was able to have 3 conversations with him, man. I'm not gonna lie, I felt like if I had a 4th conversation with him, I would have had to go and face him face to face so that we could do the things that grown men do. Because I've never had anybody talk to me like that. And and not walk away with a split lip or get knocked unconscious. Never. But Herman only lived another 7.5 years after his encounter. He never was Herman again, according to his son. Was scared of, definitely afraid of railroad tracks, shadows outside in the backyard. They go to the movies and have to walk from the movie theater to the car. Not him, his mother, him and Herman. And Herman might see a shadow or the light from a passing vehicle may hit a tree and he create a creepy looking shadow. And Herman would absolutely freak out. He spent, you know, when I talked to his son the first time, I haven't cried in years. And I actually cried. And when his son was describing what he went through, and the boy was like, "Man, you cried?" I'm like, "Dude, you don't understand. Nobody should have to live like that. Well, if y'all hadn't gave my dad whatever y'all gave him, then maybe he wouldn't have to live like that." I'm like, okay, what you fail to realize is that we didn't give your father anything. Your father seen a werewolf. Them damn things don't exist. Okay, fine. Believe what you want to believe. But Herman, you know, driving across the railroad tracks, Herman would be sitting on the passenger seat, and he would immediately jump into the middle of the car and start screaming, "The monster, the railroad tracks, the monster, the railroad tracks." His son, they'd be sitting at dinner or something, and something might come on TV. A werewolf movie might come on TV. He freaks the hell out, run in the room, slam the door. Just, it affected whatever that thing did to him. He never was able to come back. And that's where I feel the worst when I think about that, because I can't say that I could have helped him at all, but I wasn't even willing to try. By going back the next day, the next week, the next month, and just talking to him. Maybe if I had, even with my limited life experience at that time, maybe I would have been able to say something to trigger him, to at least open the door to come back and not live in a nightmare every day. Maybe me and those other 6 guys could have put together a plan or a solution to try to get him to snap out of it. And I'm going to always kick myself for not doing that. I don't know what would have happened, but I do know that I feel like I should have at least tried. But my mental state at the time, I wasn't going to be too much help to him. I was dealing with that demon myself. I don't know, Marvin, if I could have been any help, but nothing beats a failure but a try. And I wasn't even willing to try.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna kick myself for that, because I didn't have it in me to go back. As big and as strong as I was, and as fast as I was, I wasn't willing to do that. I wasn't, because I got away once, and I'm not about to put myself in that same situation again.
You know what I was saying though, when the it's like she was fixated on Herman, because out of all of y'all, she went straight to him. It was focused just on him. Like, I don't know, like he was Mark or something, or he was the closest, because she could have got to either one of y'all. But it's go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's like this creature went straight to him.
Well, like I said, I'm not sure if he tripped if he was tripped, or if he fell on his own. But I do know that I played basketball with them, and I was faster than all of them that night. Even with the start that the three guys in front of us had, they was gonna get caught and get past real quick because fear put wings on your feet. But with what I heard in his voice, there was no way that I was going to risk. Not risk. Risk is the wrong word. There's just what I couldn't leave him. And what if it had been me that fell? What if that thing, when it was looking at him in his eyes so intently, what if it was taking some of his soul? What if it was showing him how he was going to die? There are so many questions that go along with that I don't have the answers to. I don't know what it did to him, but I do know that he was in a comatose state when we picked him up. Because we like I said, when you dragging somebody in this dead weight, they not helping you at all. You can only go so fast. And he wasn't helping us at all. And with the look on his face, it's like, I don't know if his brain shut down to protect itself, to keep him from going insane, or what was going on with that. But there was a process that happened,
right,
between him and that thing. And thank God it wasn't me. I mean, I'm hoping that I probably would have died a horrible death, but I probably would have been punching, kicking, get the hell up off of me.
Right.
But I wasn't in that position, or maybe I would have been just like him, frozen. I mean, I stood there and peed on myself twice, so maybe I would have just laid there on the ground and peed on myself. I don't know.
Right.
I've never seen anything like that before with the muscles just think of Dave Bautista or Brock Lesnar, how big they are. With their shoulders and their chest, and then you take something and make it 3 or 4 times bigger than them. And then when she stood up, we talking about 9 feet, Marvin. That's 9 feet, 9.5 possibly. She could have dunked the ball standing flat foot.
That's a big,
on a 10-foot rim.
That's a big girl.
And I'm gonna say to me, it looked like she weighed about 600 pounds. I mean, I've seen some real big bulls and stuff. My father used to drive for a truck for the packing house. I've seen some big bulls. I've seen some big cows. And she could have handled one of them easy. With the muscle that she had in her arms. I see her really being able to snap one of them things neck. No problem at all. Now, if she was there to get me and Herman was supposed to play a part in all this, and for whatever reason he failed, I don't know if that was his punishment, if that was her letting him know, you messed up, I ain't gonna kill you right now, but I'm just giving you a taste of what's gonna come later. I don't know. All this stuff is what was going through my mind. I mean, when you see something like that, a lot of times you're willing to accept any kind of answer you can get, no matter how ridiculous it may sound. If it makes sense to you, then it makes sense. But it could be totally ridiculous to somebody that's listening to you talk about it.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
So, I don't know, but that was the biggest thing that I've ever seen in my life, as far as a creature with that body type. Now, of course, you got elephants and giraffes and stuff like that. Okay, that's not going to scare me. That's something that there's plenty of.
Right.
But a werewolf that's not supposed to exist, and I'm 6 feet from this thing, I can smell her breath, Marvin. I can hear her breathing.
That's close.
See her size rise and fall, and her breath smelled like you eat something,
yeah,
and never brush.
Just like raw meat?
That's what her breath smelled like. No, just like she ate something and never brushed her whole life.
Okay.
It's a foul smell, but Louisiana has a smell all its own because vegetation is always rotting down there because of the humidity and how much rainfall they get. Mm-hmm. So Louisiana has its own smell, but her breath just is a foul smell. It's a foul smell, but I didn't smell no wet dog, no garbage, nothing like that. I just smelled bad breath, bad canine breath. And the look that thing in her eyes, and I didn't feel like I was looking at a demon. I just felt like I was looking at something that didn't have a soul. Mm. I mean, just if you look into the eyes of something like this long enough, I feel that you can lose yourself just by maintaining eye contact with it. I feel that you can lose yourself. Now, there are some people that have that it factor where they see these things, like this guy named Arvin Allen, I know that seen one, and he want to go back out in the woods and see him again. He got that it factor.
And you know what though, Roy? I don't know. It's something about. It's something I don't know if it's like when you see one of them things, it's like you fascinated because we always grew up and we believe the stuff that come on TV until we actually see these things in real life. And yeah, it's a part of me that want to keep. It's like a thrill seeker, and I want to keep going out there. I just want to find out what these things really are. You know what I mean? Because like I said, it ain't an update on it to say it's this or to say it's that. Because we really don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what. I can say me and you are pretty good friends, right?
Absolutely.
This is what I'm willing to do for you. Should you happen to go out into the are going to come to the forefront. Because now that you've actually seen it, right, and been able to get a couple of minutes, real good look at it, you're going to start trying to figure what kind of combination of creature is this? Where it's got the upper half of a human being and the lower half of a dog. Or now that I've been hearing these other ones that actually have hominid legs like human beings. And the upper torso of a human, but they got a ginormous wolf head. So then we got the ones that people say that they look like hyenas.
Yeah, I have talked to eyewitnesses that have seen them. Yeah, and they said they got the attitude of one too.
And hyenas are, based on the nature shows I watch, they're not to be trusted.
Oh no,
they are not to be trusted and why they always are in such a state of being pissed off is beyond me. I don't know if because they done seen their reflection in the water and now they mad at the world because they look like that. I don't know. But they got much worse demeanor than these regular dogmen I see. Oh, and that was another thing. This description that people have of these things having tufts of hair on the top of their ear, she didn't have that. The one I seen didn't have that.
Right.
She just had canine ears, but like I said, they weren't on the top of her head, they were on the side.
Right.
And so we talking about a fourth type, we talking about something that was genetically engineered by the government, we talking about an alien. I don't know. And like I said, I'll never get the answer that I need to know exactly what it was, but all I know for is the way everything played out that night. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, now, if somebody stand you up, okay, sometimes it's a 50-50 shot, I understand that, but sometimes they'll call you the next day and let you know why they didn't show up with an apology or whatever. But some women or guys will just get your number to boost your ego at that time, but they have no intentions of calling you or even meeting you for that day. But if there was something that had happened that kept her from showing up, even though she couldn't call me at my house, she could have called the job or even came into the job. Thank goodness she didn't. after that, because I would have never got to hear what she had to say, because she would have had chest and back all on the sidewalk outside the store. But she could have called, and I never heard from her ever again. Ever again.
And that's, you know what, that's strange. You know, that's real strange. It make you think, though. It make you think. It really do.
Yes, it most definitely does, and I don't know. All I can go by is what happened to me and the thoughts that I took with me, even to this day. Every now and again, with what I encountered, and I've talked with quite a few people. Now I have. Back then, of course, I wasn't willing to really talk to anybody, but I've talked to quite a few people about what happened to me, and I've gotten some interesting theories. I actually had a lady say to me, "Well, I thought black people didn't see stuff like that or experience stuff like that." And I'm like, "So what you saying? Dog man is prejudice?"
Right.
Is that what you're saying? I mean, she's like, no, I'm not saying that. It's just that. I'm like, okay, well, explain to me that statement to me that you just made. And she's like, well, you know, I've never heard of a black person saying that anything like this happens to them. I'm like, because in the black community, if you come forward and tell people that you've known all your life what happened to you, you're immediately going to become a joke. They're going to make fun of you. They're going to talk about how crazy you are. They're going to ask you what kind of drugs you was on that night. They're going to ask you how much you had to drink that night. None of your people that you, even your family's going to say, I believe you 100% that you've seen that. Because there's things in this world we don't understand. I don't know, we're not raised like that. We raised to deal with the here and now, and plus we got bigger issues we got to deal with just on everyday survival. But for you to say that to me, lady, it makes me think that you're trying to say dog man is prejudice. And I'm like, if that's the case, okay, she has 7 black men to choose from that night. How come she didn't take one of us? Well, I don't know, and I hope you don't take it the wrong way, but I just thought I had to say that. I'm like, have you ever heard the expression that sometimes just because you think it, it should never pass your lips? And she's like, okay, well, I can see I offended you, so I'm going to go now. I'm like, well, I'm not offended, but just choose your words carefully on how you say that, because I wasn't offended. I'm just wondering, where the hell did you come up with something like that? I'm pretty sure there's more black people than me and you and D-Dolls that have seen stuff and Dark Waters. I'm pretty sure. But they smart enough to keep their mouth closed because they don't want to have to deal with the fallout from that. So they just keep their mouth closed. But they going to start coming forward more.
And you know what, though? Just like I tell people when they be like, well, if these creatures exist, you know, why don't you have this? Why you don't have that? And you know what? It's hard to get, you know, good, clear pictures of these things. You know what I mean? Because they're not going to just stand still and let you take a picture of them. But, Roy, I thank you so much, man, for coming on the show, man, on my live, man. It really means a lot to me. You know, now my battery going dead. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to upload this. And I like to thank everybody that showed up. You know, this is the most we had so far, but it's gonna get better, and just stay tuned for the next upload. And I see y'all then.
Okay. All right, Marvin. Thank you.
All right, thank you too, Roy.
Nice to talk with you again as always, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Oh, you will. Thanks, Roy.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Hey, what sites you want to find at?